first look of my C10 on my channel here in 2 years. That video I just ended the little intro here with, it was a GoPro video of the last time I drove this truck. That was Halloween 2 years ago, October 31st. That's when the dunes closed, and I was out there in the evening, really not many people around, and I'm driving the thing around, and you actually hear the rod bearing starts letting go. I was going up Exit Hill, and I was looping around. I was going to make another pass and do a lap, and the rod bearing ends up letting go. So I decided to drive it home. From where it let go, I live about 3 miles from that spot. So yeah, I figured I got to drive this thing home. So drove it home. I had signs that the motor was pretty hurt. I was consuming a ton of oil. If I was going to the dunes, I was burning a quart of oil in it easily. So I was kind of limping it along, and I was like, I'll do one more drive, close the season down. And the plan was to pull the motor and go through it anyway, but it let go, and drove it home. And I actually have a motor. I've had this motor the whole time. I did have a motor to replace it. But then it's one of those things that snowballed. Got the thing in here, and over that first winter, I was pretty early, I think second or third year into my new business that I had started, Dune Hippie Machine, which is, if you've been following this page a while, you know what have we been doing here. I've been building other trucks for other customers, and then that's really been the primary focus for me, is keeping that business going and getting other people's projects in and out of here. So this kind of sat and didn't get touched. And then over the 2 years, it's just kind of snowballed further and further. So I figure now, though, I'm actually back working on this thing slowly and surely. And this winter, the goal is to make this thing, all the stuff I've been wanting to do to it, get it done, and get this truck ready for the dunes next year for being out at the beginning of the season. And I want to be able to run this thing all next season and get back out on the sand. And yeah, that's what this video is a little about, is kind of showing the truck in the state it's in. And then we're going to go over all the different stuff that we're doing to it and why. So we'll go ahead and start right up in the front. First thing, obviously, is getting this motor pulled out and getting the motor rebuilt and done. I've always ran Gen 3 4.8 liters in this thing. This is the third motor that I've had in this truck in 6 seasons. So I've gone through about one motor for 2 seasons. I like to spin them up to 7,000 RPM, and this thing really likes to pull hard at like 62 to 6,500 RPM. So that's where I like to run the thing. And I usually just buy short blocks off of Marketplace, and I don't do bearings, don't do nothing. Just have always slapped heads on them. I've got a big cam in there, some aftermarket springs, bigger valves. This pair of heads has had some head work, but it has been on 3 motors now, so I'm not betting that all of my components are going to be usable or good anymore. It's got LS7 lifters, all that type of stuff. It's got a bunch of LS like drivetrain upgrade stuff. The bottom end's pretty much it's all just a 4.8, and then put a little bit of money into the valve train and then just spin it and run them. So this time, what I'm going to do is I actually have a 5.3. It's still a Gen 3, but it's just a 5.3. So all my stuff will work on it. My cam will go in there. Any of the parts that are usable off that, I'm going to put on that. But this time, since I have some time, I'm going to strip this thing down and actually put a whole new set of bearings in this motor. I've already inspected, pulled the pan, the crank, and everything. All the bearings look good in this, like they've got life. But I'm this far, might as well strip it down, build me a motor that is fully fresh from bottom to top, and see if I can get more than 2 seasons out of a motor for the first time. So that is kind of the idea, and go with that. Some other things with the motor. This is something that not a lot of people know. That's like an eBay header, which is super close to my spark plug, so I'm always melting wires. And that eBay header doesn't fit on this side, so this is just an OEM manifold. That's how I've always ran this truck. This is the exhaust that's always been on this truck for 6 years, is a manifold on one side and an eBay header on the other. So another thing with the motor that I want to do is I'm going to build a set of headers. I think I'm either going to build a set or I'm going to buy some and modify them. But I'm going to change up my exhaust. Like I said, I've had a lot of issues over the past, and it really boils down to my spark plugs being too close and melting wires and then getting misfires. So that's an issue kind of that I've had to deal with on motor stuff. But other than that, everything else up here as far as cooling system and stuff like that is pretty much going to be the same. I've got a radiator, fan shroud, all that. So need to get that done. So pulling the motor, once that motor's out of there, I am thinking I'm probably going to redo a bunch of this cage work up here. A couple different reasons why. I need to do a new bumper. We had a big wind one time and I went out there and there was this huge stump of driftwood that got uncovered from all the wind, and I came over a hill and absolutely annihilated that thing. I think I have a little bit of a clip of it I can put in here if I do. Yeah, that thing annihilated the bumper. Got some red marks on my shoulders from, I think I was probably doing like 50, 60 miles an hour and hit this thing and just stopped me. So that's been like that for, I don't know, whenever I did that a couple years ago. And like those bars are obviously a little tweaked. That bumper's got a huge dent in it. So thinking I'm going to cut pretty much this front stuff off. My fabrication work when I built this truck when I was 23 years old. I'm 35 now. So 12 years ago, I started building this thing. So a lot of this stuff is welded with a 110 MIG welder 10 plus years ago. And my skills have come a lot further than what this vehicle shows that I'm able to do. Man, really laid it in there. Hey, you know, this was back when I was building this, my motto was, see a gap, I can fill it. And that's what we did. We did not worry so much about fitment. We just got her close and we let the MIG gun lay it in there and let it eat. Not something I'm super proud of, which is really now why I want to fix it and I want to change it. I've gotten the opportunity to build for some customers what I think are some really cool engine frame rails, so that's a big part. I'm going to cut this stuff off. The shock mounts need to get redone, so that's another reason. I want to run 16 coilover and 18-inch bypass. Normally I run 14 and 16s on people's setups for beams that I build. But on this truck, I really want to try to get some big travel out of the front. And to do that, I need a 16-18 coil. The problem with that, that's what I've always had a 16-18 in here, is my mounts are really high and the stock hood doesn't fit anymore. So I want to rework that. I want to figure out how I can get those 16-18s in there and get the stock hood back on it. So there's quite a few reasons why I'm going to actually redo this front engine cage. I'm not going to redo the cab cage and back half. All that stuff's fine. It really is just the engine cage. I want to cut that out and get my new engine cage in there that I offer and sell to people. You know, kind of, it's a showcase. I want to be able to showcase product that I make now for people and have it on my truck to be able to showcase it. So that is the plan with the engine and the engine cross member, shock mounting, and all that stuff. That brings us to the front suspension. As you can see, we don't have any. This truck has always been an I-beam truck. When I built it, that's always what I wanted. I wanted an I-beam truck. But the possibility or thought of me building I-beams at the time when I was building this was not something I could grasp. Had my hands full with just trying to, the 4-link suspension in the rear I did all myself, the cage, you know, the whole rest of the truck. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to hire this out. So I did. There was a company at the time. They are no longer in business. And from my perspective, thankfully, the experience was not a great experience in hindsight. I paid for beams and I did get some beams, but I did not get all of the things that I paid for. And so that relationship from the very get-go when I had beams on this truck was never great. That person was around, would be in the dunes, would never talk to me, would, you know, kind of hang their head down low when they were around me because they knew they had done wrong to me. When I finally did get the truck going and, you know, figured out all the pieces that were left that didn't get done, I was driving the truck. It was the second time I was ever driving the truck. And the steering, which was welded by that shop, completely let loose going through the whoops at about 70 miles an hour. They had, instead of using a Heim, had used a bushing on the steering and butt welded it, but they only welded half of it. And, the negligence is on my part. I never double checked any of the work. I was very unhappy with the company. Finished the truck out, and in hindsight, yeah, I should have double checked. If they were willing to, do what they did to me financially, not give me the stuff that I paid for, I should have assumed they probably weren't willing to actually do the proper work on the vehicle. So needless to say, I almost wrecked the truck, was not very happy, and had to redo all the steering after that incident. And that was the day that I kind of really set in my mind. I was like, I got to figure this out, and I'm going to start a company and build I-beams because this guy's doing it, and he's, in my opinion, screwing people over, which, like I said, that business is no longer around. For me, we're talking small amounts of money into the small thousands of dollars. But another customer came along, and that was lots of thousands of dollars, and legalities, courts, all that stuff came into play. Because when you screw people over like that, that's what's going to happen to you. So from that day, I knew eventually I needed to get beams built, and that's really what Dune Heavy Machine has been about. Not that it's like a vendetta, I got to show everybody and show, but for me personally, it was like that thing. I built this whole truck, and then I look at it now, I'm like, man, why didn't I take on building those beams? So Dune Heavy Machine, if you've been watching, has been solely pretty much focused on getting I-beam suspension built and learning from my experience with that previous shop. And then there was a lot of issues with the beams that I had. I had to build complete new spindle uprights to try to correct some geometry. The steering was always an issue. And then it just was the vibe that personally people would ask me about my truck, hey, who built this thing? I did. Oh, did you build the beams? No. And then now I'm in this awkward scenario with people, probably you guys that are watching this, of like, I don't really want to talk about the beams. It's bad blood for me. It's kind of that thing. So now with this truck being down, I was like, I'm going to rip these beams off, and we got to get a set of Dune Heavy Machine beams on here. And that's the point that we're at now. So those beams have been gone for a while. Sold those off to somebody that is working on putting those on an F100. And putting them on, they should be able to fix a lot of the issues that I was complaining about with them. Now, as far as my beams, before I was on the frame, I am going to do a center mount radius arm. It's going to be my beams, my spindles, all of that stuff. And then we're going to be running 16, 18-inch combo for the front for shocks. I did have 2.5 coilovers with a 2.5 3-tube bypass before. I want to go now to a 3.0 bypass minimum. If I can get 3.5s, I'm going to try to do that. But budget and money will predict that and what's available. So that is the plan. I do not know if these mounts are going to stay. I have been drawing this in my frame rails in CAD to get my beams positioned under that how I want, and to pull to get the geometry and different things that I want in the beam kit on this truck. So that is a little bit of a story with the beams. Like I said, the goal of that is to not be like, I'm not a big fan of trying to put down everyone else's work. At the same time, I've never really publicly on any of my channels made the claims that I'm making in this video. And I think it's just time that I've kind of put my story out there. In private conversations, it's pretty interesting hearing from people a perspective from a different side that's really not accurate and true. So this is my channel, and this is my opportunity to kind of say those beams are pretty much not on there just because the company did me so wrong. And I just don't want anything associated with that company on my vehicle. So it's just a personal thing. We all have personal stuff in our life, and for me, it comes down to, if you pay for something and you shake a man's hand and you're supposed to get that, that's how it's done. And if that's not the case, you gotta have a resolution. And this person's resolution to me was get lost. So that was at the beginning and start of Dune Heavy Machine. Now that company is no longer around, and Dune Hippie Machine is now building I-beam suspensions for customers, and we're gonna finally have a set of Dune Hippie Machine I-beams on my own truck. So that's gonna be the front. The rear. The rear is what I've been started working on. As I ripped the beams off, I got to the point I was like, you know what? The whole truck needs to get stripped down. Let's check every bolt, every joint, all of it. Let's replace everything. So that's where then the snowball has moved all the way back to the back of the truck. I found some worn out Heims. I had found my upper link tabs on my 9-inch were ovaled out from bolts loosening, me not catching it in time, running it, moving around, stuff like that. So this is actually all fixed now. Those are all new. I've done that in the last several weeks. So that is all ready to go back in the truck. I still have my trailing arms and my upper 4-link bars over in my shop. I'm gonna do some re-welding on those, maybe do an overlay on the trailing arms. And I gotta replace the Heims and bushings in those. I'm gonna wait because I still got a little more stripping down. I'm gonna pull the tank, the fans. I'm gonna do all new lines. I've had different issues. I've had like a transmission line that was burned through and then was spliced because some zip ties broke and it laid on the exhaust. So it's kind of stuff like that. Truck's been running for 6 years. It's time for everything to be fresh. So this truck at some point is going to be down to just the cage. I've stripped, that was the last thing I did. I took the seats out of the interior so I can get in here. I'm thinking I'm gonna rework this center console thing a little bit. Maybe finish off my dash build. That dash has never been finished off. I've just been driving the truck. That's really kind of the main goals. Get the truck front to back, completely refreshed, all new bolts, all new hardware. Probably about the electric is probably the wiring is the only thing really that's going to be staying and won't be brand new. But that wiring, I also rewired this truck about it would have been the winter before this thing, the last season. So most of that wiring is still fresh and new. So that is a little update on my C10, kind of a look at it. We'll see how much time I have this winter. I have some crazy dreams of actually trying to seal this cab off this year, maybe cutting that back firewall out and doing all new tin, putting the back glass back in it so it can actually be enclosed. I have even, for the entire time I've been running this truck, this is a big hole that's just sealed off with duct tape. It's like the HVAC hole for the HVAC system. That was the first day I went to the dunes. Somebody grabbed a roll of duct tape because I was giving them a ride. They were getting blasted with sand off the tire, and they put duct tape on that firewall, and it's been there ever since. So maybe, I don't know, part of me wants to keep that just for the story and the memory, and the other part, eventually that duct tape's probably not going to hold, and maybe I build some nice panels there. So that is, yeah, I already said that, the C10. Thanks for, as always, coming to watch my channel, seeing what I'm doing. If you've been following me since the days of when I got this going, I appreciate that. It is time to get the C10 back out on the dunes with a fresh set of Dune Hippie Machine I-beams and also a little bit bigger motor. So that is the stuff we got coming up on the C10 over this winter. We'll catch you next time. Peace.